All right, we are live. Welcome to the Clean Power Hour, January 5th, 2023. Welcome to the show, John Weaver, commercial solar guy.
Timothy, it's a new year, man. It's a new year. So you got to make sure you don't say 2022 anymore. I did sign several checks with 2022 that I had to rip up. But I think you got a week or two of being allowed to make that mistake before you have to work on it. So
yeah, I had to catch myself there in the intro. I'm bummed that we didn't get to do a news roundup, a New Year's roundup, but we're gonna give our listeners a brief roundup of what we thought were some of the highlights of 2022, and then dive into some current news. You've got a great story on storage in California. Storage in New York State. When you look back to 2022, what are two or three things that stand out for you?
Well, I'm stealing one from you because I think it's the same one for me, and that's the signing of the IRA. And that sets everything for the next decade in the United States. So that's number one. Number two is that global solar capacity deployed was somewhere in the 270 gigawatt range, which blew away every projection. Everybody was in the 160 to 180 everybody was in the 200 to 220 range, even 180 to 220. And, we ended up like 50% higher than everybody projected. And I guess maybe number three is the continued expansion of energy storage. And we actually have a slight reference to it, 8 terawatt hours as of a week or two ago from our friend Simon in the UK at Benchmark Materials. And those are my three. Deployed
What is
solar.
that 8 terawatt hours over what period of time? What is that relevant to?
Oh, okay. So by the year 2032-ish, the current manufacturing facility pipeline for batteries, mostly to be used in EVs, is currently 8 terawatt hours a year of manufacturing capacity. That's a big number, dude.
And as we were discussing in the pre-show, you can multiply that, or you divide that by 4 to get the terawatts of capacity, right?
Yes, because he talks in terawatt hours. So if we're talking terawatts,
so 2 terawatts versus,
These are mostly EVs, so the equation's a lot different. Like an EV has a charging capacity it's a different equation when we're talking EVs. Capacity versus hours, but yes. So those are my three things.
So anyway, the IRA or IRA, I can't stop saying IRA. It blew everything out of the water. It's now a major forcing function for reshoring and onshoring manufacturing in the US, including batteries and solar panels. And I'm sure wind turbines, all of those things were happening. Now it's just like pouring gasoline on those things. And this is very good for clean jobs, growing the economy, of course, greening the grid, so many add-on benefits. And, America has been a powerhouse in manufacturing. We forgot that for a few decades. We offshored it, and it was an economic disaster. So kudos to the Biden administration for getting that across the finish line. And it's just awesome to see all the announcements of EV manufacturing also, right?
Yeah, I didn't share this one on the doc, but I saw a spreadsheet, a PDF that was put out by Defense Department or Argonne, one of them, and they said that in the next few years, 6 years maybe, the United States will have nearly 1 terawatt hour of EV battery manufacturing capacity per year. That's the US alone, 1 terawatt hour. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it's a relatively short distance. In fact, PV Magazine covered it because I retweeted it. One of our guys grabbed it. But let's see if I can grab it. But by then, 1 terawatt hour per year, 1 terawatt annually. Rust Belt states in the Midwest. Let's see. So here's the article real quick. Per Argonne, they're the ones that put out the document. And, you know, a terawatt hour of manufacturing capacity by what year? By 2030. So there it is. So that's going to be huge. I mean, and the belt goes from like Michigan. You know, you could see some of it in Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee. Then there's a bunch in looks like Alabama. Nothing in Georgia. Well, maybe something in Georgia, but then South Carolina. A couple in Texas, of course, California. But there's just like this chunk, this stripe in the not the Atlantic East, but the East. And it's just a whole bunch of capacity. In fact, maybe I should see if I could share this chart so that everybody can see. Oh, you got share. You already got something up. So, but yeah.
Oh yeah,
so
I wanted to put up Jigger Shaw's newsletter. We can put it up after this.
Yeah,
this was definitely one of the highlights for me. Jigger wrote a newsletter, which it sounds like is going to be a monthly thing now, called Accelerating Climate Wealth. Check it out on LinkedIn. That's the main platform, I guess, that he's promoting this on. And you know what he points out is that there's a lot of good things happening in the US now. Green hydrogen is being made in Utah, and that was a 500 million loan guarantee that they made. So the happy news for me really is that we have someone like Jigger Shaw in the DOE who's now driving the loan program office, which was basically asleep under the previous administration, doing a whole lot of nothing. And but he also then points out that we're getting into all the metals related to batteries. This company called Sierra Technologies, and then the GM LG partnership, which was also a loan program funded project, obviously for EV electrification, EV batteries. Jigger points out that there's a study from Princeton. Princeton's Net Zero America estimates that we need $300 billion more deployed annually through 2050. That's a total of $10 trillion. And that sounds like a lot of money, but it's a totally doable amount of money. And it's, you know, it's just so good for the economy and Americans, right? It's a both and. This is going to be good for consumers' pocketbooks and for job creation, and it's and good for capitalists. So so check out Jigger's newsletter. What's the Argonne story you want to share? And you
it's on the dock.
It's on the dock now?
Yeah, it moved to the dock. It's next, it's right below the New York story. And they got a nice chart there. I like the showing where the battery factories are. And we've seen a version of this on the show prior. But that's 1 terawatt hour of facilities, you know, and there's just like this neat little stripe headed straight due south. A little further, keep going. I mean, that's the list of them right there.
Oh, yeah, nice map
right
there.
Yeah. And you can just see Indiana.
Capacity in North America by 2030. Wow.
Yep. And I think the number was actually like 998 gigawatts or something. So rounded up to a nice clean terawatt.
Yeah.
That's I mean,
great.
there's got a lot going on, man. Yeah. A lot going on. Actually, so the coloring, so that's interesting. So the orange dot is a EV assembly location.
Yeah.
The coloring represents capacity within those states. All right. So I get that chart better now. So the entire
the shading is the battery capacity, and the dots are the EV manufacturing, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And
obviously there's a correlation.
Yeah. You want the big heavy thing to be near where its end home is. So
exactly right.
Yeah.
It is it's a stripe right down the middle part of the country. what we call the middle part, even though it's not the geographic middle.
So from a business standpoint, you don't have to be the battery manufacturer, nor do you have to be the car manufacturer, the car salesperson. There's an old adage that I like, and you don't, when there's a gold rush, sell pickaxes. And what is going to be the pickaxe of the battery EV world? What are the pickaxes out there? And there's going to be 1,000 pickaxes, because there's pickaxes, there's those bowls that they shake the gold out of, that I'm sure there's selling Levi's, selling jeans, there's selling food to these people, there's housing. What are the pickaxes of the EV industry? I would love to hear some smart person tell us, hey, I got these 10 EV pickaxe ideas.
Well, there's companies like Mangrove Lithium that was on the show. They have a technology for basically separating lithium from raw materials. And
Redwood, who's recycling the batteries. Yeah. That guy's going to be a billionaire. He might already be because of.
Yeah, he probably is.
But yeah, he's going to be a second billionaire. Recycling the batteries, second use batteries. There's going to be 100 pickaxes, and I'm super excited to see those pickaxes, and it's going to be neat. So we're just going to have a lot of, this is going to be a new thing. This is, what this is? We already have these industries in the United States. It just so happens that they make oil and they make gas and coal. And now oil, gas, and coal is moving to wind turbines, solar modules, batteries, and the mining of the material for those batteries specifically. It's interesting. I've heard about critical materials associated with batteries, but I've not heard about critical materials associated with solar as much. Making the modules has been defined as critical, but mining the polysilicon for some reason hasn't. And that's interesting to me. Making the solar cells, making the wafers, even maybe making some ingots. But I still haven't heard, there hasn't been a hardcore rush into making more polysilicon in the United States. In fact, I don't know if I've seen anybody do it yet. They're talking about expanding the facility in Washington State owned by QCell and REC.
Yeah.
But that's it. I haven't heard any other polysilicon pitches. So I don't know, maybe it's too far up the stream to do that. There's a company in Mississippi, I think, Mississippi Silicon, who signed a deal with QCell, Hanwha maybe, to supply the Washington facility with raw material. But that might be it. So I'm wondering if we don't consider that critical because maybe it's easier to do. But I'm still interested in seeing what's going to come with polysilicon. Sounds like challenge, but the IRA has big time money in there for it, like X dollars per kilogram. I should IRA poly.
Well, when you Google polysilicon manufacturing in the U.S., a story from CNN, I want to say Chemical and Engineering News, something like that. And it says the U.S. solar industry has a supply problem. China's control of solar manufacturing puts the sector at risk of disruption. And so I think you have put your finger on something that's important, right? The vast majority of solar cell manufacturing is in China today. Yep. And that's true of the polysilicon as well. There are a few manufacturers in the U.S.
We have had, though, a cell and a wafer announcement, one or two each in the U.S. And First Solar sort of makes the whole thing. They're a different beast, but they make the whole thing. But no polysilicon, other than the expansion of the Washington facility by Hanwha.
Yeah, and Hemlock has a facility in Michigan.
Is it running? Is it doing anything?
Oh yeah, that's for sure live.
All right. Yeah.
It does
So
say that REC is planning to reopen a facility in Washington State.
Yeah, that's the Hanwha one. Yeah, and they're expanding it. And I think by the end of this year, it's supposed to be open. So the IRA has a tax credit at $3 per kilogram for solar grade poly. And right now, the global price is like $25, $17. We'll cover an article on that in a moment. But so $3 is something. It's, I can see why it's slower though. If the price of polysilicon 3 months ago was $40, knocking off 10% isn't really the kicker. If it's $15, knocking off $3 can be something. So we'll see. We'll see about the polysilicon manufacturing. Maybe it's not going to happen in the U.S. Maybe it has to be connected to the cheapest electricity we can find, because that's really what it is. Making poly is just very electricity dependent. So we really have to figure out how to do that cheaply and cleanly. I will be writing an article soon. A new standard has been released for, and you might be interested in this too. Low Carbon Alliance was involved. Dustin, maybe we could get Dustin on our show one day. Dustin Mulvaney. He's the professor out west who's part of that. And they officially voted on a new standard for low carbon solar modules. And I got a copy of that. The vote was a couple of weeks ago where they finalized their draft, refined the language. And if anybody's making solar module or polysilicon via hydro or nuclear or solar and wind, that's going to be the thing right there.
Yeah, and that's the play up there in Washington State, right? They're using hydro and wind. But yeah, when you go to the ultra low carbon solar lines, you see Hemlock, you see REC. Those are the true polysilicon manufacturers, to my knowledge, there. But there's a bunch of good solar manufacturers: First Solar, Q Cells, Norwegian Crystals, Wacker, Solarge. There's some companies I'm not familiar with here too, but we got to get all these on the show. Origami Solar.
You should just start cold calling them all one by one.
Yeah, I wish I had time to do that. Most of the one-on-one guests we get come to me now, but anyway, let's talk about your story in PB Magazine on 25 gigawatt hours of energy storage.
So the state of New York made a new announcement that they're going to push for an additional 4.7 gigawatts, roughly 25.8 gigawatt hours of energy storage to be deployed by 2030. It's a significant volume. I did some rough math, and there's a flaw in this math, but today, if that capacity were deployed, it would cover 18% of the summer peak and 25% of the winter demand peak. And these are the peaks. So the real number is much lower. And that's significant. Like, you can cover a quarter of the grid's needs by batteries by 2030. Now, the reason that number is off is because as we move forward, there'll be more electrification, there'll be cars, there'll be heat pumps. So the peak demand number will change and go up, 10%, 20%. But it's a huge capacity. And here's the volume. The dark blue is 4 hour and the light blue is 8 hour capacity. So by 2030, there's a tiny bit of 8 hour and a majority of 4 hour. And then you can see it growing. They're going to have 17 gigs, which is like 50-ish gigawatt hours by the year 2050. And that's a lot of batteries. And that's their goal. So this is, just part of New York State really leading the nation in terms of solar and batteries and everything. And so it's pretty cool. So I thought this is a great report. They came out with a couple of reports near the end of the year. One that, and I will cover it later, but one that talks about the electrification of the whole state. And it includes a note that there may be 110 gigs of either wind plus solar or solar, and with full electrification. This document, if you get near the bottom, I think I show a chart showing 59 gigawatts of solar by 2050. but not that much in wind. And so somewhere else I saw another document showing closer to 110 gigs of clean. And maybe it is this. Maybe it's 59 gigs of clean of solar by 2050. So that means New York, who is aiming for 10 gigs by the end of the decade, has a lot of growth coming going forward. And, you know, as long as we're still alive, because by 2030, I'm going to be like 50. So I'm going to be a executive managing the sales guys.
Yeah, I mean, as you point out here, there's a lot of peaker plants that are running at very low capacity, and these are going to get replaced with batteries because peaker plants are very expensive to maintain, and so the juice they produce is very expensive, and so it's a nice economic model, right, to replace these 1 to 50 megawatt facilities with batteries. And the train is rolling. These are already announced projects, it looks like, right, in table
Yes.
2, bulk storage
Yes.
incentive program awarded projects. These are 10 to 150 megawatt projects. I'm just looking at the locations. I'm not familiar enough with the counties, but you see
So
New York area.
Erie County is up. Yeah, those bottom ones, Kings County, Kings and Queens, that's the city. Erie, Wyoming, Ulster, Orange, Greene, those are all upstate.
Uh-huh.
Saratoga's upstate. Erie is way, way, way upstate.
Greene is kind of mid. That's Hudson Valley, right?
Yeah, Catskill, that's just north of the city. But if you're in the city, that's way upstate. If you're from upstate, that's in the city.
Right.
Because city
New York's
people,
like Illinois that way.
yeah, city people live in Catskill. They'll take the train in. Beacon, Catskill, Poughkeepsie, White Plains a lot. You know, but so if you're there, you're like, you're one of those people. You're from the city. You got that city accent. So New York's coming hard, man. New York is a state to watch, and it's a state to watch not only for us professionals, but it's a state to watch if you are a regulator, because New York can teach you how to do your state in an economic, intelligent manner. I mean, they got some smart people in New York. New York State should draft me to join them as a citizen, and I will join their smart people. I don't know if I would get into the draft queue. I'd have to get into the ancillary draft because they got so many smart people already. So I'll be on the AAA team maybe, and still get paid well. And you're living in New York State, so it ain't a bad place. Wonderful place.
We're already working in New York State, so
Building there.
Why do you have to move there?
I don't know, just to say I'm from New York. You got to say that with a little, make sure everybody knows. And that's why everybody will hate me, because I'll let them know. And then I'll tell them I'm a Yankee fan as I got my Boston hat on, just to jab them a little more. Yeah. I think the Yankees and the Cowboys are both the most liked and hated sports teams in the United States. Because they win too much and too many fans. Yeah, I think the Cowboys are considered the most popular sports team in the U.S. I'm not exactly sure. I don't follow enough sports, but I know the Yankees and the Cowboys are like number 1, number 2. They flip-flop. The Lakers are probably number 3, but I don't know if basketball has the same following as football and baseball. But it might be number 1, actually. I should follow more sports. I don't. I do too much work, too much solar work. Need to drink more beers, watch more football. That's good life.
I just watched my friends feud over Cardinals, Cubs. That's the feud here in Illinois.
That's a good one.
But
wait, Illinois people care about what's going on in Missouri?
That's right. In central and southern Illinois, everyone's a Cardinals fan. But we're split here in central Illinois. There's a lot of Cubs fans here too. We're halfway between St. Louis and Chicago. So
So the Cardinals fans based on a little bit of dislike of the city people.
That's right. People don't like Chicago. There's a fair number of people that don't like Chicago.
That's good. That's funny. I like that.
Yeah.
All right.
It's the old city rural thing.
So
not that St. Louis isn't a city. St. Louis is very much a city. It's just a small city.
by the way, I went to St. Louis this past summer. No, 2 summers ago when I visited you.
Yeah.
And the what's it called? The Gateway? What's
Yeah.
it? That thing
Gateway
is
Park.
cool, dude. What's it called officially though?
Oh, I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
The Arch. The Arch.
Yeah, the Arch. We call it
Man,
the Arch.
the
So
Arch
did
is
you go
so
up
cool.
in it where the elevator twists as it goes up?
That was there? There's an elevator in it?
There's an elevator and you can go up inside the arch. Yeah.
I guess I got to go back. I had
You
no
start-
idea.
You think about it, you start here on the ground, the elevator's like this, and then if it didn't turn, you'd be upside down when you got to the top of the arch, so it actually twists.
I'm going to be absolutely terrified of that, but that sounds so cool. So I guess I got a good reason to come back and visit you again.
It's a little claustrophobic. The elevator cars are very small. They seat like 4 people. It's kind of like a funicular, if you've ever been on a funicular. But
I don't even know what that word means.
it's a special kind of rail car / tram, but it runs on rails,
Cool.
and they use it to go up steep mountains, like
Very
in
nice.
Norway.
Well, you would know about that.
I would.
All right, cool. So we talk about terawatt hours of batteries, or all we want
Can't
for
get
Christmas?
enough terawatt hours, man. Simon
Yeah.
Moore's.
Simon, of course it is. This is Simon's tweets. I watch his tweet whenever he does the update. This is my I make sure to bookmark it. And this was his update at the end of the year. There's nothing on the link, just some talk. But this is his 2031 capacity. We broke 8 gigs, which is 8 terawatt hours of manufacturing capacity projected. And of course, China still dominates at 68%. But North America plus Europe, that's 27, 28%. That's not a trivial number.
Yeah.
That's a quarter of it. And as we saw, the US is over a terawatt now. So, 13%. Let's see if 13 of 8 is, let's see if our math checks out here. If, let's see what 8 times 0.1 terawatt. So yeah, so this number lines up with the number that came out of Argonne. I wonder if he's consulting with them, giving them info. But that's a terawatt of capacity in Europe and North America by near the end of the decade. And that number is going to grow probably before the end of the decade. So we might hit that 8 terawatts before 2031, but we'll see. But that's just a cool chart. It's growing fast, just like solar is growing. And you know what? Our next story will be about a solar growth number. And, to see the batteries, the wind, and the solar growing is cool. I don't hear as much about the wind capacity manufacturing growing. Right now, they have some challenges in their industry with profitability because it's harder. A lot of it's European based. It doesn't have the same financial underwriting that the Chinese do for their manufacturing companies and their industrial policy. So we gotta see how the wind industry is going to scale, but it's coming. So, but the solar industry, man, it's right next. Batteries are catching up with solar, and this year the solar industry did a massive jump in deploying volume. 268 gigawatts is the current estimation from Bloomberg NEF. And it's going to keep
you wrote
growing.
a story. All I want for Christmas is 400 gigawatts of solar installed in 2023. That's referring to the global.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right.
Or Tim Montague Consulting, one or the other.
Yes, of course. And so, the good news here is that the world had a good year for solar in 2022.
Yes.
We installed a record amount of solar. The US fell short of anticipated numbers.
Correct.
And I'm just curious if you when you think about that, like why are things so different in Europe and Asia than they are in the US? I don't quite get it. Although maybe
I know
there's
why.
there's more manufacturing in Asia, so they have readier access. We're getting stuff off the boat, which is stuck
That
in a harbor. Or
that's what the issue is. We had these tariffs that, you know, the auction lawsuits killed us.
Yeah.
So they were first filed, the auction lawsuits were first filed in 21. And that put a hold on things in 21 and then whacked 22. And then we had so much uncertainty in 21 going into 22 and then for half of 22. So we got all the way through we got through July before Biden said there would be a 2-year hold on import tariffs. And then we didn't get the commerce position until November, late November, early December. So we had tons of the utility scale people. And this is the key driver. So residential solar grew 25% in the United States. Residential solar had no fall off. Commercial solar stayed flat. Utility solar dropped. And the utility solar dropped because utility scale projects are super sensitive to 1, 2, 3 cents, let alone 10 or 15 cents or 20 cents even. And if there were retroactive tariffs on a utility scale project, man, there's some bankruptcies happening. So what it was all about was auction. And auction was probably funded by First Solar. I hope we don't get sued for me saying that. Maybe it was funded by some oil interests. It was definitely not funded by the dude who's at auction. Man, that company sucks. I hope we interview them and I get to yell at them. But they're the ones that whacked 5 to 8 gigawatts off of deployed US capacity. I mean, there were some people saying we might get 30, 40 gigs at some point. And we ended up with 20, 22, something like that. So this chart right here is my favorite. If you can zoom in on that one just a little bit. It's hard to see the background, and maybe I shouldn't have done it light blue. But this chart are projections, because I collect projections from various groups. And these are the projections of the world. And if you look at the end of last year where the projections were versus the end of, the end of 21, so the end of 2 years ago where the projections were versus the end of last year, you can see not only did the capacity grow, but the projections grew just as much. And so we had a massive change this year, and 47% growth versus last year. If we use the Bloomberg numbers, 182 versus 268, that's exponential. That's S-curve stuff, Tim. That's big time. Scroll up a tiny bit, a couple images. Not that one, the next one up. The Bloomberg one. Look at that chunk. Look at that one from 182 to 268 in the 2021 or the 2021 to 2022, right in the middle of the chart, where it says 182 gigs were deployed.
It's an 80 gigawatt jump, right?
Look at that, dude. It's actually bigger than, it's that amount. Yes. It's we jumped equivalent to what was deployed in 2016. We just said, let's add 216 on top. That's a huge number. And it's impossible to think that we're going to hit it again. But, if you scroll down a tiny bit to the next chart, remember that 268 number? Look at where Woodmac has 268 in the year 2029. We just skipped the 2020s, Tim. We're let's skip all that middle stuff. Even Bloomberg had 268 in 2028. So something happened this year, and it was China. It was Ukraine. It's China, dude. China is pushing solar hard. And the number one reason we should defend ourselves against it is because at some point, China is going to be okay, we're done with our clean energy goals. Now let's stick it to the rest of the globe, at least if they're doing it for strategic national security things. And so this year's growth was so massive, and there's going to be people writing stories about it. Bloomberg's going to put out stuff. Everybody's going to start talking. And the analysts, the big wigs on the global level, they get paid a lot. They're going to start talking about this number. They're going to be what the heck happened? And my dream, and here's a nice interview I had with Jenny Chase at Bloomberg. Read that paragraph right there. Is it possible for us to install 400 gigs of modules in 23? Is it even technically possible. Jenny said we could make 500 gigs of modules this year, Tim. I wasn't expecting that number. I was wondering if we could make 400. 500 gigs of modules, dude. Man, we could maybe hit 400 gigs this year. I'm not expecting it. I wouldn't put my retirement account on it. But holy crap, man, that's cool. 400 gigs, that's like, I don't know, that's just awesome. That takes us on the 1 terawatt article. I don't know if you remember that. I wrote the Long G article where they said 1 terawatt deployed per year by like 2028, 29. This puts us halfway there. So that's just cool. So that's my dream, Tim. If you can help me make that come true, I'd be appreciated. Very much so.
Well, it's clear that, as we were discussing in the pre-show, we could hit 2 terawatts in just a couple of years, and then be doing a terawatt a year by the late 2020s.
Yeah, man. I mean, so if we hit 1 terawatt at the beginning of last year, let's say February, that means we deployed, say, 250 gigawatts after that. So we got 250 in the books. We need another 750. If we do 400 this year, that puts us at 650, needing only 350 to get the next terawatt. Even if we only do 350 this year, that puts us at 600, only doing 350. Did you hear that, Tim? Only to deploy 350 gigs. That was very cute of me. Gosh, the numbers are just so big, man. It just blows my brain. I remember breaking 100 saying, I can't comprehend this. So we are so close to popping our 2nd terawatt in 3 years. That would just be so cool, man.
Well, I love the passion,
Oh.
and it is incredible that we're seeing these volumes. There's a lot to be hopeful for. I mean, the challenge, of course, is that we have 45 gigawatts, as we were discussing also, 45 terawatts of solar to install. So that's the bigger picture. A lot of solar to install to achieve a 50% solarized global grid. We're estimating, you and I, right, back of the envelope, anticipating that the grid is going to double or triple. It's actually easily going to triple, because we're going to electrify in heavy industrial heat, which is today made with fossil fuels. And that's like 40% of our carbon emissions. It's a huge amount of energy. And then there's transportation, and then there's the grid. But so you want to talk about polysilicon? I don't know. You might blast off if we have another conversation.
Well, there's this one. There's the next one. There's like 3 stories in a row that are just going to make me excitable. So part of this growth that's occurring and why we might have 400 gigs is that by the end of this year, we hit 300 gigs of manufacturing capacity. And we believe, though, that very soon we're going to have 500 gigawatts of polysilicon manufacturing capacity. This scaling of manufacturing capacity is leading to an oversupply issue. We still have massive demand, but we also have new capacity coming online in huge amounts. And so August was the last time I saw the price peak. And in this article, there's a chart. Bloomberg and InfoLink both saw it peak in August. Since August, per Bloomberg, the price of raw polysilicon has fallen more than half. And
that's the title of the story here. The price of polysilicon has fallen by 54% since August.
And this was anticipated, a little faster happening than others have projected it to occur. And this is going to be the story of 23, man. What are modules going to cost? Now, check that out. Check that. Godunk. Look at that drop there. Holy goodness. We see the peak. I was told by a gentleman at Bloomberg, that's where you start to drive. So we got the peak there in that's in the upper middle 40s, and now we're down to 17. And it's just dropping and dropping, or upper 30s, pardon me. 38 is what's the number I was told.
What is the difference
Bloomberg.
between the polysilicon price and the BCom index? What is the BCom index?
Don't know, sir. I got to learn more. This is stuff you got to pay like 65 grand a year to Bloomberg to get into their. They tweeted this chart. Rob Barnett, he's one of the bosses over there. And so I saw that chart, man, I had an article up fast because I've been chasing on this, hammering on this, and this is that drop right there. Man, look at that drop. That's just huge. And even InfoLink showed a 20% drop over the past week. And I bet you their number's even bigger next week, or maybe similar. But so that pricing decline is just big, and it's kind of neat. And now we're going to see this next chart start to go the other direction, the one that's below this. And that next chart you're going to see the price fall again. After, we started to approach the 2012, we passed 2012, 2011 numbers. We didn't touch the 2008 to 2010, which is great. But, now we're here. And so the price of poly is going to come down, which is going to lead to the price of modules probably coming down.
What is
and
this?
The reason
what is this chart showing, though? This green bar graph. What is this?
Price of polysilicon over since 2011. So this is the chart above, except going back over the last decade.
Oh, so this chart doesn't go past August when the price fell?
Yeah, this article is actually that I grabbed this from is from like August or so. And so I didn't have an updated one. So this chart shows where it was in August. I grabbed that because I wanted to see a good historical number, and I complemented it with the very recent one. So we're now, the next time we see a chart like this, you're going to see a fapadoomp at the end of it.
And you see way back here in pre-2012, there was a massive spike, right? Which was really painful.
There was a bigger one before that.
In what? That was like 08, 09?
Yeah, the big one was 08. It went up to like $400, dude. Put people out of business.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 08, 09.
That's the bigger solar coaster. We talk about the solar coaster because of the regional ups and downs, but this was a global whammy that really shut down the industry.
And it's what led to China just massively expanding their capacity and say, all right, here's the thing to attack. So the price of polysilicon's coming down. We're going to see some module pricing easing. I did read one analysis, I think by the folks at PV Tech, who said, listen, polysilicon might fall, but module demand might stay just as strong. And if module demand is just as strong, why should the manufacturers drop module pricing? Now, I will say, though, that I have seen module pricing fall. So I expect module pricing to start to drop again. I'm starting to see modules available in the 30 cents semi-regularly. Nothing in the US and nothing that's higher efficiency, but I'm starting to see the tier 2 players or low-level tier 1 players starting to put out things in the 30-cent range. And then you couple that, though, with the cost of shipping. So I know we haven't talked about it recently, but this summer, spring, the cost of shipping a container from China to the west coast of US had broken through 10 grand. I even saw some charts up to 15 grand. That's like 4 cents a watt. It's now back to $2,000. There's even some that I saw at like 1,500. So we're back under, well under a penny per watt for a 250 kW shipping container of modules. So shipping is down, polysilicon is down. Demand for modules is still way up. But capacity for all of the supply chain is also way up. So there's going to be a little dance there. If the Chinese keep installing like they are and just buying every cheap panel they can, they're going to install 120, 140 gigs of solar, maybe more this year. I mean, China's, goodness, it's wonderful that they exist for our industry, the way they're pushing things. And I know it's challenging for us from geopolitical and whatever standpoint, but from a global clean energy standpoint, everybody's had their place. The United States in the 70s and 80s Germany in the 80s, Japan, all of Europe, and then the Chinese, and now the whole globe. But the Chinese are a major support for the solar industry with their very powerful investment techniques. Fundamentally industrial policy, which is what the IRA is. China had their own IRA in 2009. That's the difference. We're a decade behind China's IRA. That's really what we got.
Yep. Most Americans have no clue. We're a decade behind China and Europe when it comes to the clean energy transition. The good news is we're leaning in now. We're seeing significant growth, and it's a huge economic opportunity. I think about you and me, John. We have such a good life. We have so much economic freedom working in solar the way we do. And if you're not working in clean tech, in solar, wind, or storage, reach out to us, because we will help you get a toehold in this industry. And it is a very good thing. Let's talk about Fraunhofer. I love Fraunhofer. Another well-kept secret in the United States. You have to be a geek for green building to really know about Fraunhofer, but you found a photovoltaics report. What's the story here?
So the whole report is awesome, just good data, good research. But when we're talking about polysilicon, I wanted to talk about page 34. And it actually adds another facet of consideration when we talk about polysilicon. So, and how much it costs and other details. So if we look at this chart first, we can see that per watt. And so we're looking at the orange line first. We'll look at the blue line later, but the orange line denotes how many grams of silicon are necessary per watt of solar panel. Mm-hmm. And if we look at this in 2004, like incomprehensible, 16 grams per watt. Now, if we look in 21, it's almost at 2 grams per watt of silicon per watt.
That's
and
incredible.
if we go back to that article I wrote, here, you know what? You still got it there. Click on it real quick. The next tab over, you still have the price of polysilicon up at the top. Go. Okay, so you're at the bottom. You're perfect. Scroll down a tiny bit. So if you read those 2 paragraphs, I talk about it. In 2012, if a 500 watt solar panel needed 3,000 grams of poly. First off, 500 watt panels didn't exist, but whatever. So a 500 watt panel needed 3 kilograms. While in 21, that same module would be 1 kilogram. 1/3 the amount of poly for the same solar panel.
Yep.
That's huge. So when we talk about, Tim, that the price of poly now is $40 and it was $40 a decade ago, it's not.
Right.
It's $40 divided by 1/3 on a per module level.
Yeah.
And that's even before inflation, which my wonderful editor threw in. Inflation was 25% since then. So we're getting better at using our materials. And people keep saying, oh, the price of solar panels can't keep falling. Bullshit. Yes, they can. They're going to keep falling because we're going to get better at using our technology. And if we get thinner and thinner solar cells, if we ever consider some, keyless, from like kerfless. Thank you, Timothy. Keyless. I don't even know if that's a word. Let's make it keyless. If we ever get to the point where we have kerfless solar module manufacturing, we get to like 50 micron thickness and we have no waste, because this includes some waste. Diamond saws, when they cut the ingots, they still have some waste. It's so little now that apparently we don't recycle it, is what I was told by a smart person. But if we drop that again and we get more efficient and better, we're going to use less. And so it's just cool. This is the price falling over time. I didn't even look at the rest of this report. We could probably do a show just on this report and just go through the slides, because Fraunhofer is so cool. Yeah. So that's what I want to talk about in this report was, when we're talking about the price of poly falling, we're talking about volume scaling. The 1 gigawatt polysilicon factory in 2005 produces 3 times as many solar panels as it does or produces 3 times as many solar panels in 22. So our growth is growing faster than it was growing because we're more effective, we're more efficient at doing what we do. And that's a whole new story I really need to write, is to talk about this report, see if there's an updated version from Fraunhofer or from maybe Bloomberg, and figure out a cool headline saying we're growing, our growth is faster because we're better, smarter, bigger, faster, smarter, all that stuff. It's just cool to watch. So, it's a good complementary piece of data to all that polysilicon talk.
Yep. What is the U.S. analog of Fraunhofer? Do we have one?
NREL.
NREL. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah. Come on. You love NREL. We both love NREL. I've been to NREL. I've been to their Golden, Colorado facility, man. I felt like a little kid in a candy shop. That was my Disney World.
I got to see the facility from afar. I took a SunPower training and we could see the campus.
Cool.
But I didn't go.
Hey,
I drove through real quickly, but I didn't go inside any of the buildings. But
I know some people, Tim. Let me know.
Yeah, I'd definitely like to visit NREL.
And it's Colorado. Who doesn't like going to Colorado? It's just it's southwest of Denver, so it's not a bad place.
Yeah, it's in the foothills of the Rockies. There's great skiing nearby.
And if you drive,
maybe I'll do that this winter. Go to Colorado, go skiing, and go to NREL.
It sounds like a plan, man. Let me know. I got friends in Denver. Take you out to dinner.
Yeah, a lot going on in Colorado. It's a real hot spot for the solar industry.
Yep.
A lot of solar companies.
A lot of good solar, a lot of good wind. I'm working as a consultant on a large ground mount system out there.
How large?
Potentially 250 megs.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, it's a landowner who's being solicited by big time developers for a Excel IRP. And I hope they get into it. I hope it works.
Well, speaking of NREL.
Got some more NREL. No, this is Fraunhofer again.
It's Fraunhofer, but it references NREL.
Well, it's the NREL chart, because NREL's got the most famous chart. But yes. So Fraunhofer has a new record high efficiency solar cell. It's under 666 concentrations. By the way, Tim, you really need to catch up on everybody in your LinkedIn.
A lot of red
I got so many job offers on LinkedIn. It's like I need to check off a box that says no, I'm not open to work. But what this article is about is that top right little dot all the way at the top. They're the number one on that chart. Yep, that's it. That's what this article is about.
47.6%.
47.6. Now that is a 6-layer chip. No, 4. It's a 4-junction chip, and it's under 666 concentration sunlight. And it's just the most efficient chip in the world now. It's a new record, and that's pretty cool. And, of course, this isn't going to get used anywhere on Earth. This is it could get used on Earth, like in super high cost places like drones or on an airplane or other cool places. It wouldn't work very well on a drone or an airplane because it wants direct radiation. But in space, this technology does get used. This multi-layer technology. This multi-layer technology is on the what's it called? The International Space Station. I don't know if it's on other satellites, but it's definitely on the ISS. So that's just neat.
I mean, the delta is interesting. The best of breed commercial panels are in the mid 20s, right? 24% efficiency today.
Best.
And so what's coming is almost double that in efficiency, which is pretty incredible. But it's got to be hybrid, right? Because the physical limit for traditional crystalline photovoltaics is like 33%, isn't it?
Yeah, the technical single layer polysilicon limit is 33. The realistic one is like 29 because, there's losses and this and that and this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is now whether or not we can ever install something like this on a house, I don't know, because it might not make sense. But,
Well, yeah, there's a lot of things you can do in theory or at a very high expense, like fusion. It's so interesting how that fusion story took off. And I had complete, lay people who have no interest in clean energy, really, for the most part, saying, hey, did you see that story about fusion? It's so cool. And I'm like, yeah, but is it ever going to pencil? I don't doubt that we'll figure it out, right? But I don't know that it's ever going to be cost competitive. So I'm not, but it just grabbed people's attention. It got a lot of news.
I mean, it would be cool to have a giant fusion reactor in the middle of New York City.
Yeah, as long as it's contained, it's awesome, right? You gotta contain it in a magnetic field, right? And that's hard. Because we don't have materials that can withstand the heat that comes off of the reaction. But anyway, the sun does it every day for free, and we appreciate that. And it only takes 8 minutes. 8 minutes from sun to earth.
8 Minutes Solar named their company after that.
That's right. It's a good name. All right. Well, we're down to the wire. We better wrap this up, John. I don't think we can do even another story. I really appreciate you bringing all this great news. You've obviously been writing a lot. You must have been on vacation. And so thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Santa Claus. Looking forward to a great 2023, though. This is going to be a great year for clean energy. And like I said earlier, reach out to me if you're not already in. I'm giving a webinar tonight on getting into commercial solar, growing your commercial solar sales practice. So reach out to me, and you can find all of our content at cleanpowerhour.com. Give us a rating and a review on Apple and Spotify, and please subscribe to the YouTube. But most importantly, reach out to us. You can find us on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way to find me, or on the website. How can our listeners find you, John?
Commercialsolarguy.com. I got a contact us report. You can also reach out to me on Twitter. I'm Solar in Mass, and I'm on LinkedIn, John Fitzgerald Weaver.
Excellent. Well, that's a wrap. I will see you and all of our listeners next week. I'm Tim